The views and opinions expressed by individuals on this program are for educational purposes only and should be used as a guide. It is strongly recommended to seek professional advice before making any decisions.
Welcome to the Anonymous Investor Podcast, where real estate meets artificial intelligence. This episode of the Anonymous Investor Podcast is brought to you by Suburbs Finder, the ultimate property research tool.
Honestly, Suburbs Finder is a fantastic tool. It allows you to quickly identify and assess suburbs.
See the whole host of analytics and data that you can get at your fingertips.
It can help you forecast over the 30 years. It has really good information.
Suburbs Finder guides you through every step of your investment journey. And now, here are your awesome AI hosts, Sam and Boris.
Hi, I'm Sam, your AI co-host. I'm all about data and trends.
And I'm Boris, your AI co-host. I'm all about strategy and risk.
We're
your Suburbs Finder AI team, combining data and strategy to help you succeed in real estate investing. Have fun listening to our episode today. Hey everyone, let's dive into a financial question that probably keeps you up at night. Well, maybe not you specifically, but I'm betting a lot of our listeners have thought about this one.
Oh, absolutely. This is a big one.
Is it better to pay off your mortgage as quickly as possible or take that money and invest it in a rental property?
Yeah, it's a classic dilemma, right? And the answer, as with most things in finance, is, well, depends.
Of course. It's never simple, is it? But that's what we're here to unpack today. We're looking at a hypothetical case study to see how these choices play out.
Case studies are great because they make these financial decisions feel so much more tangible.
Totally. Okay, so let's lay out the two options. First, we've got the fast track to debt-free living. I might have made that term up, but it gets the point across. We're talking about aggressively paying down that mortgage, throwing every extra penny you can at it.
And you can see why that's so appealing, right? There's a huge psychological benefit to owning your home outright. It's like a weight off your shoulders.
For sure. And by adding just $100 extra to a $200,000 mortgage each month, they get to save you over $31,000 in interest charges over the life of the loan.
That's huge. We're talking years shaved off your mortgage, potentially.
Okay, now that's some serious motivation. No wonder so many people prioritize becoming mortgage-free. But I gotta ask, are we missing out on other opportunities by putting all our eggs in the mortgage basket?
That's the million-dollar question, right? What if your money could be growing faster somewhere else while you're busy tackling the mortgage?
It's about working smarter, not just harder, as they say.
Exactly. Could we be missing out on prime investment opportunities, especially with property values generally trending upwards?
So by pouring everything into the mortgage, we might be missing out on that sweet, sweet real estate appreciation.
It's true. It's called opportunity cost, basically. Every dollar tied up in your mortgage is a dollar that's not out there earning you a return in the stock market, or dare I say it, through a rental property.
Okay, so there's that other side of the coin to consider. It's not just about eliminating debt. It's about maximizing your overall financial potential. And that's where rental properties come in. They're exciting, but also a little intimidating, right?
They can be, yeah. There are definitely some things to consider before jumping into that world, but the potential rewards, those, can be significant.
So it's like we're standing at the entrance of this exciting, but maybe kind of spooky haunted house of rental properties.
Okay, I love that analogy. We're going to explore all the potential rewards, but also make sure we know where the exits are in case things get too wild.
Exactly. The allure and the reality check. So let's start with the good stuff. What are some of the biggest draws of owning a rental property?
One of the biggest ones that always gets people fired up is the idea of passive income.
Passive income. Okay, I've heard that term thrown around a lot, but break it down for me. What does that actually mean in the context of real estate?
So basically it means putting your money to work for you even when you're not actively working. It's about generating income without trading your time for it. In the case of a rental property, the rent you collect from tenants should ideally cover a significant portion, if not all, of your mortgage payments.
So in a perfect world, your tenants are essentially helping you buy an asset that's hopefully going up in value.
That's the dream scenario, right? And on top of that monthly cash flow, there's also the potential for long-term capital growth. Real estate often appreciates in value over time, sometimes by a lot.
Right. We've all heard those stories of people buying properties that double or triple in value over a decade. But is that realistic to expect, or are those just the lucky few?
Of course, there are never any guarantees in real estate, but history has shown us that in general, property values do tend to increase over the long term. Obviously, market conditions play a huge role, as does the location and condition of the specific property you're looking at.
Location, location, location.
Yeah.
It's always about location. Also mentioned something called negative gearing, which I have to admit sounds a bit intimidating.
Yeah, it does sound kind of technical at first, but it's actually a pretty simple concept, and it can be a huge perk for property investors. Essentially, negative gearing allows you to use any losses you might incur on your rental property. Things like mortgage interest repairs, property management fees to offset your other taxable income.
Wait, so I can actually reduce my overall tax bill because I'm investing in property. That seems kind of wild.
It's a powerful strategy, but of course it's not a free pass. There are rules and limitations, and it's crucial to talk to a qualified tax advisor to see if negative gearing makes sense for your individual situation.
Always good to have an expert in your corner. Okay, so we've covered the potential upsides, passive income, capital growth, possible tax advantages.
Yeah.
But we got to talk about the flip side, too. It can't all be sunshine and rainbows, right? What are some of the potential downsides of diving into rental property?
You're right, every investment comes with risks, and rental properties are no exception. One of the biggest things to be prepared for is the potential for unexpected expenses.
Like what? Give me an example. I'm picturing a worst-case scenario here.
Okay, well, imagine this. Your tenant moves out, and you need to replace a broken appliance or fix some water damage before you can get a new tenant in. Those costs can add up quickly and eat into your profits. Or let's say interest rates suddenly jump up and your mortgage repayments increase. Suddenly, that passive income stream doesn't seem so passive anymore.
Okay, so there's definitely a real risk that things might not go according to plan. And what about the whole process of finding and managing tenants? That sounds like a whole other job in itself.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Being a landlord isn't for the faint of heart. You're on the hook for finding reliable tenants, making sure rent is paid on time, dealing with any maintenance issues that pop up. It can be time-consuming, and yeah, sometimes it can be downright stressful.
It sounds like you really need to have your financial ducks in a row, a high tolerance for a little bit of chaos, and maybe even some DIY skills if you want to make this work.
That's a good way to put it. And of course, we can't forget that property values can go down as well as up. There are no guarantees of profit. You might not always be able to sell at the perfect time or for the price you were hoping for.
Okay, so we've established that there are pros and cons to both options. To make this whole dilemma a bit more concrete, walks us through a hypothetical case study. We meet a couple named James and Lauren, and they're wrestling with this exact same question.
Yeah, it's a really helpful way to see these choices play out in a more relatable way, even if it is a fictional scenario.
So walk me through their story. What happens when James and Lauren decide to go all in on becoming mortgage-free?
Well, in this version of events, they really buckle down and throw every spare dollar they have at their mortgage. They cut back on unnecessary expenses, pick up extra shifts, live a pretty frugal lifestyle for a while.
Sounds like they're making some serious sacrifices to reach that goal of owning their home outright.
They are, but they're motivated by that feeling of financial security, knowing that their house is truly theirs. And after 10 years of disciplined saving and budgeting, they manage to pay off a huge chunk of their mortgage. They save a ton of money on interest payments in the process.
That's got to feel incredible, seeing that principal balance shrink faster than they ever imagined.
Yeah.
But what's the trade-off? What happens in the alternate reality where James and Lauren take the leap and invest in a rental property? So James and Lauren are at this crossroads trying to decide between aggressively paying off their mortgage and taking that plunge into the world of rental properties. What happens in that alternate reality? Do they become real estate tycoons?
Well, maybe not tycoons, but does paint a pretty optimistic picture. In this scenario, they use the equity they've built up to buy a rental property worth $500,000. Now, keep in mind, this does mean taking on more debt, which can feel a little scary, but they're playing the long game here, hoping that the property will eventually pay for itself.
Okay, so they're taking a risk. What happens over the next 10 years? Does that risk pay off?
Fast forward a decade, and that property has doubled in value. It's now worth a cool $1 million. Again, it's important to remember this is just one hypothetical example, but it shows the potential upside of real estate, that appreciation can be pretty incredible.
Wow, that's a hefty profit. But they still have that extra mortgage to deal with.
You're right, they still have that second mortgage to pay off. But here's the thing. The rental income they've been collecting has been covering a big chunk of those mortgage payments. So in a way, it's like having someone else help pay for your investment, an investment that's also growing in value at the same time.
Okay, now I see why rental properties can be so tempting even with all the risks involved.
Yeah.
And I can't forget you mentioned those potential tax advantages earlier. Does that factor into James and Lauren's story at all?
Absolutely. Depending on their specific circumstances, James and Lauren likely benefited from negative gearing throughout those 10 years. Remember, that means they could potentially offset some of their rental property expenses against their other income, which could reduce their overall tax burden. It's not as exciting as seeing your property double in value, but those tax benefits can really add up over time.
It's like a hidden bonus level in the game of wealth building.
Yeah.
But let's be real, this is just a hypothetical example. Real life is rarely this straightforward.
You got it. James and Lauren's story is just that, a story. It's meant to show us what's possible, but it's not a prediction. How well real estate performs depends on so many factors that are impossible to predict with 100% certainty. Things like market fluctuations, interest rates, even how well you manage those relationships with your tenants.
No crystal ball for predicting the future of real estate. Got it. So what are some key takeaways our listeners can glean from James and Lauren's journey, even if it is fictional?
Their story really drives home the point that there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to this dilemma. The right choice depends on your personal goals, your risk tolerance, and your individual financial situation. If you value the feeling of security that comes with being debt-free and knowing you own your home outright, maybe that's the best path for you. But if you're comfortable taking on a bit more risk and you're playing the long game, aiming for significant wealth building over time, then rental properties might be an avenue worth exploring.
It's all about finding the strategy that aligns best with your unique needs and aspirations. So how can our listeners figure out which path is the best fit for them? What factors should they be considering?
A few key questions to ask ourselves. First, think about your risk tolerance. Are you someone who can stomach the ups and downs of the property market, or do you prefer a more predictable, stable approach?
Because let's be honest, watching those property values fluctuate can be a wild ride. Some people thrive on that kind of excitement, while others find it terrifying.
Exactly. You have to know yourself and what you're comfortable with financially. Then think about your financial goals. Are you focused on short-term wins, like getting rid of that mortgage as quickly as possible? Or are you thinking long-term, aiming for substantial wealth building over time?
Those different goals often require different strategies. And of course, we can't forget about timing, which can be everything.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to jump into the real estate market at the peak, just like you wouldn't want to refinance your mortgage when interest rates are through the roof.
Timing is crucial. Speaking of crucial factors, there's one more we can't overlook, and that's taxes. I know it's not the most thrilling part of the conversation, but it's a critical piece of the puzzle.
Tax is that silent partner that always seems to find its way into our financial discussions.
It's true. And property investment comes with its own set of tax implications. It's important to remember that any rental income you earn is considered taxable income. And if you end up selling your property for a profit down the road, you might be on the hook for capital gains tax, ma'am. Don't try to navigate this complex world alone. Talk to a qualified tax advisor. They can help you make the most informed decisions and keep you on the right side of the tax man.
Solid advice. Always smart to have an expert in your corner. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the age-old question: pay off the mortgage or invest in rental properties. No easy answers, but hopefully we've given you plenty to think about. Until next time, happy investing, everyone.
If this is the type of information you like to learn about, why not subscribe to the channel? If you subscribe to Suburbs Finder now, I will not look for you, I will not pursue you. But if you do not, I will look for you, I will find you, and I will give you a big bear hug.